Okay, we're live with Mr. Wright and Mr. Obrock, and we're take it away, Mr. Wright, talking about this book.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted to be here and adding a new face to our ever growing repertoire. We've got Dr. Breck here, we've got Leanna, myself, and then Carter Obrock, whom is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you've got a number of different hats that you're wearing. You're a homesteader, you're an Army veteran, you are a Midwestern farm boy type, a pattern noticer, and a science fiction author. Do all those attributions, are all of those, does that sound like you, Carter?
That is accurate. Absolutely. Yeah, we got a farm out here writing for maybe 5-6 years now, right after that event a few years back that shut us all down, And the homestead's been a 10-year thing right there along with the oldest son. So we've all been out here ever since the first one was born. And yeah, a lot of stuff to do. And writing is just one more thing on top of it. I typically do it at work, which is a full-time job. It's just not the busiest job. So thankfully I'm able to write while I'm there, which is fortunate. Yeah, very busy, always busy. I wish I had more time for more stuff, but there's always something going on. I'm sure you guys understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that actually segues well into maybe one of the more interesting topics in this, being that you are a pretty prolific author. You've got, the Magellan series, which is 3 rather large science fiction, proper science fiction novels. Then you've got a number of novelettes, novellas. A Land Without Shade, we'll of course get into. This is the book that Dr. Breck and I took some time to pour over. It occupies sort of our stomping grounds in different ways. I think I'm a little bit more, in Core of Discovery territory. But anyways, whereas this is more southern Missouri, Arkansas, Ozark region. But anyways, I wanted to learn a little bit more about before handing it over to Dr. Breck. I just kind of want to kick this off with, how do you do your writing? What's your strategy there? It sounds like you're in a position where you're able to write while also, working and, doing every this, that, and the other.
Yeah, the style, kind of freewheeling. I know what I want to write, with the Vietnam book and with A Land Without Shade. I knew what the ending was. I knew what I wanted to be. I knew what the first, second would be. But then once I sat down, sort of like, okay, I'm writing and I need to get to, I need to get to the end or to the next thing that's going to bring the story along. And we had talked before, and I kind of said, and I heard this recently, somebody said post and ghost, which I thought was kind of funny and referencing, social media stuff. And I had said to you, it's like drive-by writing. I do obviously edit, and I'm thinking about, but, the kind of person that I am, I'm kind of lucky to get anything on the page in the first place. So when I start to write, I just do it. It's not something that I want to get caught up in and worry about. That's something that can happen with me. So I've just kind of gone into it. I just jumped in with both feet. It's like I'm just going to write. And I think in time it's kind of gotten better. I've had, it's like more of a formula. I'm more used to it. And then you have the time to say, this is what I want. And how do I get here? I'm somewhat more familiar with the process. So now I can get here without as much trouble. The key is writing. I'm sure that people have said that before. You just got to sit down and do it. You got to write. Don't ever be afraid if there's anybody out there who likes to write or wants to write. You got to do it. I'm grateful that some guys have read my book. I'm so grateful some guys have read it, because you shouldn't go into it thinking you're gonna have a ton of people read your book. You better just write. You better know what you want and do it for you. And And then you're thankful when other guys come along and it kind of can speak to them too. There's something to share. My wife and I talked about it last night. She finished it. She reads a lot. It's mostly nonfiction, but she'll pick up fiction every now and then. So we chatted about it a long time last night. Usually I'm talking her ear off till she's fallen asleep. And it was nice. It's nice to be able to discuss these things, especially because this book does matter to me. It's about our country. It's about the trouble that we're seeing. So it matters to me. But like I said, I'm thankful you guys enjoyed it, checked it out. Very cool.
Well, I'm just blown away that you're able to keep the momentum going. That's something I struggle with. I'm a starter, a sustainer, but closing out a book, closing out a work is just such a monumental, or any project for that matter. It's a very hard thing for me to finish the thing. You figured it out. I'm going to be picking your brain offline if you don't mind. But I'm just really impressed with your output, and not only that, being that you're a, I don't know, I don't know what you did on the editing side of things, but this book here, A Land Without Shade, very polished. Usually you find, like with indie authors, you're going to get some rough around the edges type of stuff, but this is really refined. You're a refined writer, I must say. Just that's just from my perspective, having read it. What say you, Dr. Breck?
I thought A Land Without Shade was a very good science fiction book. It reminded me of the old book Some Will Not Die. I can't remember the author, from the late 60s, early 70s. But likewise, I thought the dialogue was really good in the sense that Mr. Obrock does a good job of sustaining dialogue, which a lot of authors have a problem doing, writing interesting dialogue that holds the reader's attention. And also, I thought it was, obviously it has a plot that moves along at a brisk pace and keeps your attention. But it's just very interesting that, yes, she brought up the book I was talking about on the screen for me. But in terms of A Land Without Shade, I thought, it was just very, very well done. I thought, I have not read the Magellan series, but I do intend to.
Yeah, likewise.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. They are long. The Magellan series is some meandering, like he goes and he sees new worlds. He finds animals. He talks about how they're different from the things we know. It is not like, that is my sit back and just enjoy myself. I was talking to the wife last night. I said, I'm writing some chapters for the 4th book right now. And the guy's in the desert. And I said, is he maybe in the desert for too long? And then I said, yeah, but it's kind of for me. So I guess he's going to be in the desert as I need him to be, Whereas, Land Without Shade, I feel like a much shorter. Go ahead.
I feel like you're one of those writers that really enjoys the process. Of writing, and
absolutely,
you enjoy writing as much as other people enjoy reading a book.
It has been nice. I've enjoyed it.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. Probably a little bit of a delay there. Yeah. I like writing, and then I'll come home and I'll kind of edit it. Like I'll reread, whatever and I'd watched one of your videos, Tyler, and you had talked with James about the digital dark age. So every time I'm writing stuff, I'll print it right off and I'll bring it home and I'll read it. I'll try to reread it, edit it. I might be having a drink or something. Then, sometimes you see other stuff. You got to change your state of mind, not heavily, but, and then you put it down for a while. Once the whole thing's done or a chapter is done, I'll reread it again. And you'll just continue to catch stuff. And then once I have it printed out, I really like to have a copy in my hand and read it again. And you're going to find stuff. Those books have edits all through them because I'm finding stuff and going, how did I miss that? How did I miss this? So I'd heard they say like 7 pairs of eyes need to be on, your story, your manuscript. And I don't have that many eyes looking at mine. So I'm kind of doing it often. And I think naturally I'm okay at editing. That's always something I've been able to do. You know, my ability like to read and write things like this has been pretty good. I'm no fool, so I think like that's a natural gift that God gave me. Not that I'm great or anything, and not that anyone's ever going to read a ton of my books, but I do think I can write, and it's fairly well done. I'm not missing a lot of stuff, you know. Oh, and of course, I'm still missing things, small things all the time. So I don't know. It's
Well,
like just stick with it, right?
I
it's
will say,
amazing. Isn't it that you don't often see a good writer and editor bundled into one, you know? Or so I mean, that's sort of been a trend. That's something I've taken notice of, that some folks just might be a better better editor than they are a writer. But I can attest to the same thing. When you have something printed out and in hand, that's when it's like a beautiful mind, where all the, the different, errors start popping out of the page, right? Like literally just floating off of the page, and you see it light up, it's wild. But when you were talking about Magellan, I was like, maybe that wouldn't be a great sell for the average reader, but it would for the readers of old. I got pissed off the other day. I read William Emerson's The Smoky God, which is sort of like a Hollow Earth, Gulliver's Travels like type of thing from 1910. I think it was written, and cool. I opened it up, great book, but the editor goes, yeah, so there was a lot of passages about waves and torrents and things like that we took out because the modern reader just wouldn't be interested. I'm like, yeah, it happens every time, You find these great books and they redact all that, the stuff that you're talking about, being lost in the desert, so it might not be the best sell for, the modern, sensibility, but I will read that and I'll enjoy something like that, just this slice of life, going around, discovering new fauna. You probably heard our mycology discussion, Dr. Breck and I love that genre of just discovery and getting lost and, coming back and getting thrown in the nut house because nobody believes you, with the things you've seen.
Yeah.
But Magellan's next on the list. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, that's what it is. It's pulp science fiction. And when I first was thinking of pulp science fiction, I knew it wasn't a new thing. And of course, Pulp Fiction, everybody knows from Tarantino. And it says at the beginning of the movie, it shows you that the old pulp comics is what he's referencing, right? He's referencing the stories of the old 60s, 70s, whatever he was reading when he was younger. And I thought, this is what this is. This is stories in space, guys discovering stuff, or a company that says, this is our new world. You're all going to go to it, and this is the story about the workers. One of the stories is about a board member, and his job is to go to the world and report back. What do you see? What needs to change? And it's just fun. I wanted it to be big as far as the Magellan series, because if anybody ever reads it, I'm hoping like you're just caught up in your imagination, and it can be whatever you want it to be. And you can think about
world building, right? Just straight up world building.
A lot of world building, absolutely. And it's like, I would hope, because I'm this type of guy. I read Dune, and that's got to be my favorite science fiction, like a lot of people. But you can't help but think about that stuff, So I want a person to read the book and go, oh yeah, what about this planet? What about that type of environment, and what would that look like, and how would we live there? Seth, Montius, we had talked a little bit about that, and he was developing like an agricultural moon and they have the really big, it's extinct now. It's like a massive type of deer or a horse or something.
Yeah.
The oryx or something, Yeah. And his character, one of his characters that made it into my second book as like one of the homesteaders on this sort of Oregon Trail. But it's an Oregon Trail in a totally different world. And I just thought, isn't that fun? That's fun to me.
That's the best stuff ever, actually. That's the stuff.
I like it. So that's what it is.
That's
very
good
fun.
stuff. Whereas A Land Without Shade, This is more focused. This is and shout out to Montius, by the way, for getting us in touch. He's really the one that
he is. Yeah.
You know, brought you onto, you know, James's radar and my own and the whole gang. You know, folks are figuring out your stuff, and anything we can do to speak to this. Did we want to kind of get into the specifics of this work, Dr. Breck, or do you think we want to be more topical?
I would definitely like to talk about the plot of the book because it's one of those almost Swiftian satires, though I see some Cellini in it, and you could name a number of other authors that it's reminiscent of. But the point is that the idea of making boomers fight the next war, a war that's going on right now.
It's pretty prescient, I was going to say.
It's very awesome. And then the idea of this bounty hunter going around looking for boomers. And then the impression is made on me specifically because I understand he goes to a location where all the old boomers live and enjoy their lives.
They do.
A lot. It was formerly a retirement community for people from the Wichita, Kansas area who worked for Boeing. And so you had all these old boomers moving onto the lakefront area in real life. So I enjoy how the plot takes account of all that and factors it in. So
were you, Dr. Breck, were you familiar with the Overlook right there at Shell Knob?
Absolutely, yeah. I've stood there many times. Yeah.
If anyone who's driven there, right, you know the Overlook. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed that. They got the Cromwell treatment up there on the Overlook. And I love it. I love that you're an Ozark guy and you're directly in line with that. You can see the locale. Very, very cool. And it is Wichita people. When we go down there, it's Wichita folks. It is. That's exactly right. But it's a very nice place. And, my dad talks about retiring there. He won't. He's not going to. He's already retired. But he would love it. I'm sure he would love it. It's a beautiful area.
Well, I'll tell you a little anecdote on the boomers that I agree with you on the way things are. But 10 years ago when we were fighting against the Romney Republicans in the state caucuses, we had all those old people. They weren't boomers. They were more silents who were on our side against the Romney people in Shell Knob. And they actually moved the caucus from a Saturday to a weeknight because the old folks didn't want to drive over down the windy roads from Shell Knob on a weeknight instead of a morning. It was supposed to be on a Saturday morning. They moved it to a Tuesday night to keep the old folks from Shell Knob from showing up on our side. So that just shows you the nefarious nature. But those were mostly pre-boomers. Now we're in the period of the boomer taking over all their properties. A lot of those people have passed away. Have passed away, actually.
Yeah.
And been replaced by those boomers with their sports cars and their expensive fishing tackle.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Oh yeah. The Corvette, you got to have the Corvette in there. Absolutely. The
materialism was just, this is the kind of work I couldn't. I was at the gym and I kept taking photos. It was kind of awkward. I'm in the back. I'm on this this like bike. And I'm taking pictures and I'm like, I'm really hoping the chicks out in front of me aren't thinking I'm like taking pictures of them, because it was frequent photos of like, I'd get through a page and I go, man, there's just some gold, these pages are just full of gold. And I was doing that with multiple pages, almost like I wanted to prep for this interview, but really just things I would send to you, Dr. Breck, and just like so many of the pages are just it's just such biting satire, but it's stuff like I wonder. So folks now, we've lived through, like we used to call them war hawks back when I was younger, and you know what I'm talking about. The the older folks who are so keen on getting a war going, but they themselves won't fight. They won't send their kids to fight. But anything to just enrich these government contractors and everyone, for some reason they get spangly. Americans get spangly over the prospect of war, and they don't think it through. So we called them war hawks. Well, in this, the war hawks get just desserts, and I wonder if this book, like, I think, will it be? It very well could be rediscovered down the road as folks look in hindsight at the massive failures of a generation, being the boomers, and really the almost hatred that some of the younger generations display in these times, and very vocally. I mean, it's a real phenomena. What it is that you're demonstrating in A Land Without Shade. And while it's humorous throughout, I mean, you hit it with satire, as as Voltaire would. And how do you make a point, right? How do you make a point that finds its way through time? And I think that this is one way that you do that. I'm reminded of there's as far as the atmosphere, I want to mention. What I like is that this is a science fiction novel, but it's this sort of dystopia, that's believable, where your infrastructure is it's in shambles. Some areas are still upkept. There's sort of a balkanization almost, but it reminds me of a lesser known work, and you might know this, Breck, Davis Arini's As I Walk These Broken Roads. I think that was released back, some 10 years ago. But it's where it's so, it doesn't overdo it. You don't overdo the aesthetic, which I really love. It's something you could see this 2030, entropy, where it leads, and then the discontent between the generations in the midst of a global war. But the other thing I love, maybe, do we want to talk about the pods? Is this a good point to do that? I'm wondering.
I wanted to briefly interject in support of your talking about the humor, and the high point of the satire, I thought, in the book was the bounty hunter's conversation with the AI. About when he's trying to collect, and I thought that was very well done. An example of and conceiving you're talking to AI and making that, and that dialogue is still very amusing.
Yeah,
so
that is the plight of the veteran. Tyler, you probably know that. Every time you call, every time you go to the VA, it's like
I know it very well.
Are you interested in killing yourself today? And you're going, no, I'm good. I'm finally in a good state. And they go, are you sure? How sure are you?
You got to really curate your responses. You're right. You're right. Yeah, it's like you fall into a big trap. If you don't play your cards right. It's a stance.
An old VA doctor told me the VA is your second chance to give your life for your country.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know they have to do it, but it's the thing they go into immediately, apparently, because they have to ask, and they have to even kind of ask you again. And it's like, I wasn't even thinking about this stuff till I came in
catch you up. And then you got to form. Don't just go yes, yes, yes all down the road. You don't know what you're signing up for.
That's right.
But there's that dance between the bounty hunter and AI, which I think that was awesome. But there's also the two bounty hunters and how they interact, where there's a mutual respect for each other. And they're vastly different people. One's more of a mountain man, Daniel Boone, John Coulter type, which I just, what was it? Jim Jackrabbit? Was that
Jackrabbit?
Dude, you got to make a book. You got to write it. Say again.
He's meant to be a full-on mountain man. Absolutely. He's got the look. Yeah. He's out there in the wilderness, 100%. It's such a good, fun character.
You
Just
gotta
fine.
use him again. You gotta
Yeah.
do something with him. I'm telling you, for me, he was like such an interesting character. He was like almost a Lazarus Long, but a mountain man. It was just so cool. And then you got what was see, it's funny. I know Jim Jackrabbit. What was the main character's name again? It was
Jeremiah Seek is his name.
Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Great character as well. And how they've got to dance though too, and how they talk. They run into each other, and it's like they have a respect for each other, but they're also competitors. They're rivals, and they're kind of you got to watch yourself even amongst friends, and that was really cool to see that character development and kind of see how they. There's almost like this you see it with Southern folks, where there's it's like an armed populace is a polite one or something to that effect, a polite society, right? And you just there's a decorum amongst men, that where it's like either one of us can do some serious damage, right? And so I saw that, I kind of saw that with these two characters. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely can. There's definitely the mutual respect there. Jackrabbit, it's mentioned that he's a former sheriff, so he knows about Jeremiah. Because of that, he's looked him up, and he had offered him a bounty, but it was the more difficult bounty, which Jeremiah gives him a little grief for, because he had a hard time of it. And there would be competition. These guys are fighting to take and usurp the Social Security benefits of the boomers they capture. And it's mentioned loosely, but it even ties into like, if he's a multiple pensioner, then you're going to get more for that. So there would be a bit of competition. But these guys, they respected each other. They weren't playing it the wrong way. There's a lot to probably write about something like this. And you could have bounty hunters that could have been bad characters, that could have been doing pretty shady stuff. But I definitely had the mutual respect between the two. And maybe because Jackrabbit was retiring, he didn't need to be the feisty guy that he offers Jeremiah the chance to go back into a place, it's mentioned as Oklahoma City, where they're rebuilding again, where and eventually I think we'll see that finally states and cities and whatever they're going to pull back and give us some freedom again, because this cannot continue. The reality of this country cannot continue. Something's going to change. And that's what he's alluding to, is that out west, if you will, it's just one state over. They're rebuilding, and there's stuff to offer there. There's women to offer there. Another theme in the book is sort of how they view a lot of American women.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. That's a big piece of it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
so I like everything you said there. That's additional context too. Just talking with the author of a book, you learn more. And as I'm hearing you, it's like, these patterns emerge that I'll probably have to work out after this whole thing, so the pods was really interesting. The idea that these, we're rounding up a class of people, the boomers, and we're taking them to this place, this facility by which they can experience a sort of induced, recollection of their lives, but they can play it out in a way that's it's sort of paradise before ultimately euthanization, right? That's the idea. So the pod becomes an enticing prospect for a good many, And I'm reminded of a certain event back, some some odd years ago, where everybody was geared up and ready and wanting, and wanting to get the thing. And I was seeing it all over again in this pushback when you were that 15%, when you were that one person within your regiment, or within your social group, or your workplace, where you weren't about it. I also see, like with, say, some of the technology that's being talked about at present. They put something in your brain, and you download languages, and you could live in, I'm a big fan of the Wizard of Oz books, right, by L. Frank Baum. I could go live in Oz for as long as I so choose. How fun time is that, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not doing it, but they ain't gonna put nothing in my brain. I'll tell you that much. And you've shown characters like this where they have two choices. They live out this wretched, brutal existence, in 2030s America, in this alternate timeline, or they can accept the pod. They can accept, so. And then there's the biblical basis behind that too, as I'm sure you're very much well aware. There's the idea of who's going to accept the mark, right? And I think a lot of people will, and we've I mean, this is just yet another simulation for me of something akin to that Book of Revelation scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with the pod, the other day, I read an article, and it talked about how they have a human brain. I don't know where this is. Maybe this is China. They do some wild stuff there. And I guess it's playing Doom. It's playing like the PC 1993 Doom game. I saw this headline and I read a little bit of it. And because my wife was asking about this stuff too, about the pod. And this is sci-fi. It's clearly sci-fi. But is it completely off the mark? And I definitely don't think so, right? We have this ability to really manipulate the mind. They're doing it with the VR stuff. They want it with the Neuralink or whatever it's called from Elon Musk. I think this is not that far-fetched, right? The idea that we're going to offer you, of course, they call it a dignified death. And that's very enticing, would it not be, to go out on your own terms, to relive things. Maybe you correct some of the things in your life that you didn't like. It wouldn't matter that it's not real. It wouldn't matter that's just a memory.
Like
that
Vanilla Sky, almost, that Tom Cruise movie. Yeah, that's
very appealing. After I wrote it, then you were talking with me, you were kind of texting, and I think James mentioned how appealing it would be. And absolutely, right? How could it not be? Getting old is rough. I'm not that old, but even I know that getting old is rough. And, it hurts. There's pain. There's suffering. It's a part of life. And it's the offer to get away from that, to go out without all that, on your own terms, controlling your fate, your destiny. And if the government was to offer that to people with that sort of technology, I think you would have a lot of takers. A very good number of people would want to take that up. And the beginning of the book, I guess we can sort of get into that. The boomers are over in Iran. They're fighting. They've been forced to. But the deal is that if you serve your tour, you get to come home and you get to go into the pod. Yeah. And then none of this will matter, because now you get a dignified into your life how you want. It sounds great. I'm a guy that used to love playing video games. I would love to now, but I am incredibly busy.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. That's another thing we share in common.
And but it doesn't mean we don't like them, right? All of us are sort of probably, we remember Nintendo. We remember coming up with Atari and Nintendo, and this stuff was fantastic. It was hours of fun, hours and hours of fun. And nowadays you get older guys that play games too. I talked to an older guy and he's playing games all the time. This would very much appeal to people.
The escapist
to escape.
Medium.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a couple of the guys, a couple of the kids he's talking to at one point, the bounty hunter is talking to some of these kids, but also the sort of protagonist in the first chapter, they know it's not real. And what I mean there is they know that it's just dreams. It's just VR. It isn't real, you know? And even though it sounds great and it's this choice that you make to go out on your own terms, and they talk about how that's the propaganda they're being hit with. You know, they're being told by their liaison.
Do you believe that you're really showing the dichotomy between the truth seeker and the one who just wants to keep their head in the sand? You know, in the pursuit of truth, what I find is that it can be a rather isolating existence. You become a pariah. And frankly, the alternative seems a lot more appealing, to just be amongst the cattle. So I wonder if that's what you're showing here too, is that there are some people who will follow truth wherever it may lead, even with all its ugliness and its unsightly attributes, and that some of these protagonists that you've shown. By the way, the other thing I love about this book is that you really go hard on the boomers, which we can all relate to. Yeah. But you also present some good ones. You know, there's good people from every generation. And, you know, my generation's an abject failure. I think all of them at this point are in some respect, but there's good people in all of them, and you've shown them, you know? And so that was, I guess I just went off on multiple prongs there, but yeah, I think just truth, it is, some people I think are just wired to pursue truth, even if it, you know, if it's ugly, right?
I definitely agree 100%. The main character there in the beginning, with the war chapter, he's alienated from the rest of the guys. They don't want to hear about his selflessness, right? He is a boomer, but he is a good boomer. And you're right. There are tons of good boomers. And of course, when we say these things, it's like, whenever I'm talking with Montius, we'll always discuss this too. You don't have to, like, everyone nowadays has to sort of give their the precursor, like it's not all boomers. It's not all boomers. And we know that. You know,
the qualifier, right?
The qualifier, absolutely. I'd hate for, you know, and my dad's reading it. My dad's reading it right now, and my son is kind of smirked. And I said, you know, he's laughing because I kind of shit on the boomers, but I'm not shitting on every boomer. There are countless good people from every generation, from everything, race and religion. We're not just wholesale shitting on all these people. Right. Like you said, your generation, the millennials, like I'm a millennial, and people definitely shit on millennials. You know, we see the stereotype, if you will. We see the general nature of a generation, you know, and I'm not the first guy ever to talk about the boomers. We've known the boomers have problems for a long, long time. And when we still love them, we love our boomers, you know. Maybe not so much the ones you don't know, but you know a lot of people that are of that generation that are great people that we still love. And that's something they talk about too. He's talking to a family at one point, and he can tell that family lost, you know, their father too. And
you see the implications. Yes, you do. Yep. You see the implications of that sort of tribalist a solution, I guess. You know, you're gonna get some casualties in the mix. You know, sometimes I wonder. I applaud in a lot of ways. He is kind of going off script a little bit, but Nayib Bukele, you know, in El Salvador, what he did to clean up. I mean, I've been to the country multiple times. I've been there before it, and I've been there during it, and it's a very peaceful country now. He solved it, but I do wonder too. Did some folks get caught up in the net? Is that just, you know, is that just sort of the price of doing business? So yeah, and I guess I kind of just overlay that idea too with your solution in A Land Without Shade, which is obviously head and shoulders above, and quite a vicious way of. I mean, it's a we've had enough, like end of the road type of solution, but very powerful.
Final solution.
Yeah, the final exactly, precisely. Yeah. So, how about the Stoics? That group really fascinated me because you present them sort of as thugs. They're a group, just kind of introducing them a little bit. They're a group of almost thuggish, sort of transient types, young guys, right? And they rap, they freestyle, but they're not idiots. Clearly, they're called the Stoics. But I'm like, I really like Diogenes, the Greek philosopher of whom Alexander the Great once he mentioned, if I could be anyone but Alexander, it would be Diogenes, which is that's a pretty big, that's a serious kudos. But so I think about like, if you've got a bunch of displaced people in a society like you've created, you've got these Diogenes sorts who, they're sort of like street philosophers. So I kind of see the Stoics like this group of like street philosophers. They're, they've got a streak of like, I mean, you don't see thugs like that generally, but humans will surprise you. You'll find a janitor who just all of a sudden he's a genius, and you're just, but
yeah.
What's your whole deal with the Stoics?
Yeah, so that is sort of it's the youth. They're all meant to be younger. There are some guys probably in their 20s sort of in the group. And I mentioned at one point that they're like the Lost Boys, right? And that's very much what it's meant to be. And they're called 6-7 Stoics because of the idiotic 6-7 stuff.
Oh, yeah. Man. I have kids too, trust me.
Yeah, and I first heard about it, and there's all these different reasons for why it's called 6-7 that don't even matter. But the one that I liked the most was they'd ask somebody, like about a rating, and he goes, "It's a 6, it's a 6-7." It's kind of nothing. It's kind of up in the air. And that's what these guys are. They're the Lost Boys. They have no prospects. Some of them are tranny types who admit to having been tricked and mutilated. And this fuels their anger. They're just angry. Yeah. They're lost and they're angry. And this is the American man right now, at least as far as our youth, right? Talking to an older guy today, and he couldn't believe, in response to the current events, how many people he was seeing on his social media just talk about burning it all down. And that's sort of what I was trying to get at with the whole thing, besides the fact that they're actually burning down all the homes that are owned by Ebenstone. I'm sure we all know, what Ebenstone is. It's like, this is what's coming, and it's not like I have a crystal ball, but we can all see that these are disaffected people, and we're only making more and more of them all the time. And now I'm seeing stuff about the young women. And in the book, I go hard on the women. The guys are going hard on the women. But the women are having a rough time of it too, in a different way. In different ways and different reasons. Almost like we flipped things, right? You put all the women in charge and they start to have trouble with what you've given them, and you take everything from the men and they're wondering where their responsibility lies. And so these guys sit around. And Jeremiah, the bounty hunter, he's talking to them to eventually kind of ply them for information, as you would need to do when you go into a place. Find the folks that are there and see what they know. I might have lost my train of thought there before my wife was in here with the child screaming at me. But these guys are lost, man, and they're rapping. It's still like modern, right? They're young guys. So they're into rap. They've got VR headsets. He plies them with some drugs, and he plies them with like sex AI and stuff. So all these things that they still want to give us that are like, these are not the things we need. And maybe some of the guys want them, but You shouldn't always get all the things that you want.
They know this though too, but there's sort of, you know, anything to dull the pain, I'd imagine. You know, it's funny you mentioned the, you know, the trannies and whatnot, right? And the lab experiments gone awry, right? I've postulated this for a while, you know, for a good number of years, that you know, some of these folks, these kids that were maimed, whether it's chemically or it's surgically, you're going to see them turn on. The Frankenstein monsters will turn on their masters. You know, I mean, it's clear as day. I just, and it's not going to be pretty. And it's, you know, I'd imagine they'd think back on those adults who weren't there to protect them. And then it's going to go beyond that. It's going to be more of a systemic burn it down type of thing. And I'm not advocating for any of that. It's unfortunately, we can't have a nuanced conversation without clarifying, right? Like
all those things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree. I don't want to see people burn it all down. Okay. We don't want to do that. Like we want change. Something's going to give. And that's what he's seeing in the book, is that they're done. You know, these people are done. You've got the new Fed, which is meant to be the younger folk, and they're done. And it becomes hard solutions. There's no more carrot, right? There's no more carrot. It just becomes the stick. And I think so many people are trying to express this, even now with the ongoing stuff in Iran. I can't even, you know, count the number of people that have tried to say like, what are we doing? What is this? And this is not going to go well for anybody. You know, it just harms everybody, and it makes us also disillusioned. The Stoics are rapping, and my wife kind of had to stop, and she goes, "These lyrics." And I go, it's utter disrespect. Yeah, the lyrics are utter disrespect. And they're also meant to be reflective of what's really going on, right? Like they're talking about you know, being invaded. You know, I think most guys will know what we're talking about when we're talking about VADES. And they're talking about victimhood status. One line he mentions is victimhood status, most disabled is the baddest. You know, nowadays we have everybody who wants to like talk about all their problems, like their feathers in their cap, right? And it's like, we used to know to not talk about those things.
The virtues have been, well, you know, and biblically up is down, and, you know, and everything is so inverted. Do you mind if I read one of the Stoics raps? I just picked a random one. Let's give the audience an idea.
Yeah, I got it here too. Yeah, it's go ahead.
So we'll start it up. Now, as the baritone jostled his pudgy body, more boys were gesturing toward Jeremiah, and an older member waved them off as he lazily rose to his feet. Jeremiah moved closer, hearing the boy's final verse. And all the good girls are gone, decent but infertile, so I head into the sewer where they fewer, descent like a turtle. Every day is a good day. That shit, what they say to me outside they facility. But my moms can't say bye to me. Burial, now I gotta see to her. Let's talk that end of life plan. They said stand up, be a man. But if this man had know they plan, I'd have come back with a gun in hand. Now take the modern date scene. Don't be crass. Don't be obscene. The deep voice stopped abruptly as he spun back around, seeing that the boys were no longer cheering him on. Instead, they were all turning towards a bounty hunter that had edged his way into their midst. Yeah,
absolutely. And
there's so much of this in this book.
Yeah, that almost happened to a guy that I know, the guy that I worked with for a long time, really good guy. And he went into the hospital, you know, for that thing 5 years back, and they almost killed him. And I know they killed a lot of people. And And that's what that alludes to, right? Is you didn't even get to say bye to some of these people when they were taken from you. And
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand how long we do this before people start to really lash out. And that's and the out. Eventually, people break. I think that's what's coming if we can't do something to stop this. You know.
I think in
I'm trying
our
to think there
last
was another chapter. Oh yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking in
I
our
was just going to
last
say,
broadcast,
Jack,
we talked about it. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we're all talking over each other. But Jackrabbit and Jeremiah are talking, and they're discussing a guy who had lashed out, you know, and it's a reference to what these courts are doing to people, right? Courts tear families apart. You know, I was directly referencing there's the guy down in Texas, I believe, where he had been divorced and his wife was trying to transition their son. And now this guy, I don't remember his name, and
I remember that.
famous. He goes to like schools and colleges now to talk about this stuff. And it's like, you know, hey, we can't say nothing terrible, but, you know, Jackrabbit tells him if somebody had done that to my family, he waits and he tells him, I'd fight God, right? You don't do this to people. And eventually, I don't know, man. Eventually people are going to go, no more. They're going to go, we've had enough, you know? And that's what we're seeing in the book. Like, yeah.
We talked a little bit about in our last broadcast, Dr. Breck and I, and Leanna, where that was sort of one of the wild hairs on it. One of the things it was, it's that this idea that society, you know, folks just are glossing over it, perhaps out of sheer necessity, because to stare right at in the face of it, to accept it as it is, I just don't think there's been that closure yet. I've yet to forget. Like, I have not forgotten what we were put through over the last, you know, that's and all that came out of it. The woke thing's a wholly separate thing, but it's all kind of intertwined, really. All these things, all of these these life altering, and make no mistake about it, 2020 was life altering for many. I lost a couple of friends over that, you know, to suicide, you know, veterans like us, you know, that just they were like, I'm done, you know, or what have you. And then, you know, we check up and he's cold and, you know, locked up in his room, you know, and we find him, you know, his body. And it's like, people don't forget this stuff, you know, and it's going to come to a head at some point. And I think your book, A Land Without Shade, shows one possible, I suppose, outcome of that. But I know I've been taking up a lot of time. I want to hear Dr. Breck and Leanna. Do you guys have anything to chime in on?
Well, Leanna hasn't read the book yet, so she's just listening tonight. I thought the very nice moment of hope demonstrated in the book was when the bounty hunter presents the family with the peach orchard starter, that seedling or whatever it was. I should know these things because we used to have a peach orchard as well.
The sapling.
By coincidence, a dear friend, well, not dear friend, but a guy who tried about 10 years ago to start a peach orchard. Just last 2 days, they've cut down his peach orchard and burned it. It's kind of sad deal. But it was, you know, he put a lot of effort and money into that deal. But the point is, this is a hopeful, that's a moment of hope for the future in the book that goes along with the your preface, your introductory quote from the French theologian about planting trees that you hope your descendants will enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is That is why he has the trees. Jeremiah in the book there has lost his family, and he remembers the good times under the trees, with his family, as so many people do. Um, and that's his hope. That's his hope, that when he can find families, you give them something that it isn't immediate. It isn't satisfying right now. It's meant for the future. And The Land Without Shade, I've always loved the quote. And the French theologian, I had to look it all up, and I learned he's sort of the first one to write this. And now everybody sort of knows the sort of more streamlined quotes about, a wise man is one who plants a tree under whose shade he will never sit. And that is absolutely what we're trying to talk about here, right? And that's why the boomer is the bad guy in the book, because you didn't do things for the future, right? And I, even now, as much as I love a lot of the old folks I know, I will hear them say, I'll be dead. They go, I'll be dead. Who cares? And you've got to say, but surely you care, right? Because your children aren't dead. Your grandchildren aren't dead. I was talking with the wife, and I was going, you used to have kings and monarchs, and they would fret even on their deathbed. What about the kingdom? What about the people? What about our future? And America has, whatever it might be, the liberal order, the neoliberalism, all sorts of issues, I'm sure, that we could pinpoint, talk about it forever. But we've lost that, right? So many have lost this idea that, like, it's not just materialism now. You can build things for others. You can build things that others will enjoy. That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So
For our children, yeah.
Yeah. And I had talked with you, I think, in the text, and I said, this is like the lament for my country, right? Like, I don't want it to be this way, but we can all see that this is pretty bad out here, So, and yeah, that is why Jeremiah has hope. When he sees families, that's the hope. That's all there is.
Well, and Jeremiah is a boomer, and the peach tree sapling, I agree, it is the literary convention. It is the one thing, that's the one bit of hope that he's able to dispense into the world, or disperse into the world. The one thing that he can do to make it a little bit better. He being a specimen of this generation that, throughout the book, you see how his fellow boomers are all about what can they do for themselves, even reaching such lengths as to pimp out their own granddaughters, or just really just do the whatever the deal more harm to the future generation than good. So, and it's interesting, I just made that connection. A Land Without Shade, the title, I hadn't made that connection until y'all just spoke about that sapling. That sapling is a vital piece of this thing.
Yeah.
It's the hope. Yeah.
It is his hope. That's right. It is his hope. So many things we do are supposed to be for others and for posterity. Even now, I was listening to it today. They're talking about the war ongoing, and they're talking about the founding fathers. I've read stuff from the founding fathers. I love reading stuff about it, about the Revolutionary War. They're constantly talking about posterity all the time.
Mhm.
It's posterity.
And watering the tree of liberty, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. The tree needs watered, and it will provide shade. So, and we've forgotten that, and not all of us, and it's nice that things come back around. So hopefully we have a resurgence of people that understand, we can be selfless again. It's okay. No.
Well, gentlemen, we're coming on an hour here. I'd like to say this is an extraordinary book, and I want to add on your point, Carter, about the founding fathers right at that time and right afterward. You know, you and me and probably Tyler can remember growing up reading about Johnny Appleseed.
Oh yeah.
And a guy
Yeah.
who was a single guy who never married or had kids, but went around planting apple trees for other people to enjoy and their posterity and so forth and so on. But the point of the matter is, he was extolled as an American hero, but we don't hear much about him today. Obviously, the boomers really didn't talk too much about him, and being a nihilistic generation steeped in hedonism and so forth. But I just want to kind of make my closing statement. You guys go ahead and close as well. I'd like you guys to have the last word, but that's what this book reminded me of, was that hope for a less selfish world. Because as a selfish person myself, I recognize in a lot of people, they're selfish to a fault. Which is what boomers are. They're selfish to a fault, to the point of they hurt themselves with their selfishness. Not to mention their progeny or their legacy. They hurt themselves, and that's why the day of the pillow is coming for them, one way or the other. That's the end of my deal.
Nice.
Well, I'll reserve the last word for you, Carter, as you're the writer of the book, and this is your show, and it's just been such a delight getting to meet you. You know, see your face and all that. This is great. You know,
Yeah.
I just, one thing that came to mind as we kind of top this off is we could have cheapened this, I think, by really delving into the current events. It really is strange. You know, we put this on the calendar with, you know, prior to the Iranian conflict, that sort of thing, right? And it happens just prior to our broadcast, and it's just kind of interesting because this book is A Land Without Shade that you write about. The backdrop is that there's a full scale war between the United States and Iran. I don't think I gave too much away. It opens up pretty quickly in that you know, you sort of get that sense pretty quickly in the book. But this is all to say, I think we could have gone that route and just elaborated and added more cacophony to what's already out there, you know, with the foolishness. But there's a lot more to this book that's merely, I think that's just a, you know, sort of a veneer to something much deeper. And the philosophical content behind, you know, I hate to say content, the philosophical contours under the surface, I think we really touched on a lot of that. And I really just appreciate both of you to be able to unpack this and to hear this straight from you, Carter, the makings of this work and some of your others. I'm just really delighted to get into some of your other stuff and maybe, you know, have follow-on discussions.
Very cool. I would love to talk with you guys anytime, and I really appreciate it. I really do. It's awesome to chat with people that can appreciate it. You know, it should matter to us. So I think we ended it pretty well. I guess all I will say is you had just mentioned kind of it just happened to be that now we're seeing these current events. I find that things are serendipitous like that often. And my wife was asking about Jeremiah because it is a biblical name. And that was in part why he is named Jeremiah. It is biblical. But I didn't really know exactly what he did other than as a prophet, you know. And so we looked it up, and he had warned the ancient Israelites about the trouble that would come their way because of idolatry and social inequality. And I thought, I feel like this is just about right. It's just serendipitous like that. So I'd leave it at that, is that we could all, you know, America's going to have to do better. And that takes all of us. And I think guys like us, there are lots of good people. There are a lot of us out here. You know, So all we can do is speak to one another, continue to help one another. I don't know. We won't get out of it by ourselves. It won't be alone, So I guess I'd end it at that. I hope that if people read this, they understand there is hope. There is still hope, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It's going to make some hard men.
Yeah. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I really
Thank you.
appreciate your time. Get this book. It's on Amazon. It's 117 pages. It's a quick read, and it's every page is just awesome. It's just good stuff.
Thanks
Very cool.
again, Carter.
Thank you.
Thank you.